Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Dom Lorenzo Scupoli's The Spiritual Combat. I hope you've joined us before. If not, sit back. We're about to talk about a difficult chapter on the spiritual combat of releasing and relinquishing consolation. So don't go anywhere. We're about to get started. Hello, I am Farah Rose, Sister Farah Rose, Professed Franciscan, and this is the Lay Ministry of Swords of St. Michael Network. We welcome you and your questions and your comments about spiritual warfare. Today, we're going to be talking and continuing in our book on Dom Lorenzo Scupoli's, you're about to see it, The Spiritual Combat. We are in the Treatise on a Piece of Soul. And today's one is going to be chapter 4 in the back of the book. It's got some difficult lessons for us because the world teaches us the exact opposite. As always, if you're here, please give us a thumbs up. It helps us get noticed and also gets others to this very valuable teaching example by Dom Lorenzo Scupoli. And if you have any questions or prayers, you can go to www.swordsofstmichael.org. If you need any prayer helps, rosaries, chaplets, Episcopal rosaries, please go to prayersbythebee.com. Now, sit back or put me on pause. Get your tea. If you've been here before, thank you. Get your journal. Thank you so much to my Patreon supporters. And here we will pray ourselves in. In nomine Patri et Filio et Spiritus Sancto, sic erat in principio et nunc et semper saecula saeculorum. Amen. Sanctum Michael Arcangele, defende nos in prelio contra nequitiam et insidis diaboliesto praesidium. Imperide de Deus supplicis te pecamur tuque. Princeps maletia celestis et animaliosque spiritus malignos, qui et perditionem marum pervegantur in mundo divine virtute detrude, in infernum detrude. Amen. The Spiritual Combat in a Treatise on Peace of Soul, Dom Lorenzo Scupoli. Chapter 4. The necessity of relinquishing human consolation in the acquisition of inner peace. The path which leads to this heavenly peace is almost unknown to the world. For along that path, tribulations and trials are sought with the same avidity that the worldling displays in the pursuit of pleasure. There, contempt and derision are pursued as honors and glory by the ambitious. There, as great pains are taken to neglect and be neglected, to forsake and be forsaken, as the children of this world take to be sought for, caressed, and admired by the mighty and the rich. And there, holy ambition is known, comforted, and favored by God alone. The Christian soul, as it travels this path, learns to converse with God alone, and to be so strongly fortified by His presence that it is willing to suffer anything for Him and the promotion of His glory. There, one learns that suffering blots out the sun, and that affliction endured in the proper manner is a treasure laid up for eternity. And there one learns too that to suffer with Christ Jesus is the only ambition of the soul which seeks the glory of resembling Him. There one is taught that to love ourselves, to follow our own wills, to obey our sensual appetites, and to destroy ourselves are one and the same thing. There, one is taught, too, that our own will is not even to be gratified in what is commendable until we have submitted it all, simplicity and humility, of heart to the will of God, that what He ordains and not what we wish should be the rule of our actions. Frequently, we perform good works from wrong motives or through indiscreet zeal, which, like a false prophet, appears to be an innocent lamb, when in reality is a ravenous wolf. The devout soul, however, will discover the illusion from the effects produced, when it finds itself in trouble and anxiety, humility diminished and composure disturbed, when it no longer enjoys peace and tranquility, and perceives all that has been attained, with much time and labor to be lost, then the fact is really fantasy. We may fall on the path to inner peace, but this only serves to increase humility, which assists us to recover and to watch more strictly over ourselves in the future. Perhaps God permits us to fall in order to root out some secret fault, artfully concealed by our deceitful self-love. Sometimes, too, the soul may be molested with temptations to sin, but it must not be unduly disturbed on this account. Rather, must the soul quietly withdraw from such temptations, reinstating itself to its former tranquility without indulging in an excess of either joy or sorrow. In a word, all we must do is to keep our souls in purity and peace in the sight of God, knowing by experience that He ordains everything for our ultimate welfare. This is a hard chapter for most of us. Think about it. What are we in this world? What are we taught in this world? From the minute we're out of our little diapers. If you're good, you get a cookie. If you do this, you get that. Everything in our world is based on consolation. If you memorize your times tables, you're going to get a candy bar. If you do all your homework, you get to play outside. Everything is a consolation. Everything has an effect. This is the result of you choosing this. We have consolations all around us. The spiritual life and the spiritual peace cannot, it can't be found. It can't be attained. It cannot be grasped for in the same way. We don't say 100 rosary novenas because we want to be at peace. Though, however, after a few, peace can be a gift. We don't go to Mass every week or every day so that we can personally feel closer to God. However, it may be a gift, and we do. When we are so wrapped up in our desire for consolation, we miss a lot of the other picture. And here, this chapter is glaringly pointing out what many of us have been missing all along. And if I might call it a name, equanimity, all things being equal, the slap or the compliment, the firing or the hiring, we maintain an inner peace because our attachment is not to the consolation, but to the cross we've been asked to carry. And that is a tall order. And on our way to where we want to be, this is a lesson that we will encounter again and again until we do release, let go, let God seek His will and get it right. So let's look at what we can do this week to focus on specifically this. Relinquishing the desire for consolation. Last week we spoke briefly about the humility prayer. Here, this will come in again very well to help us focus on what's really important. Lord, grant that others may become more holy than me, as long as I become more as holy as you would have me be. So let's look at that prayer if you can this week, both level 1 and level 2, as I look for a pen or a pencil. Let's look at perhaps level 1 and level 2. As always, we have 2 different levels of exercises and practice, level 1 being slightly easier than level 2 as far as difficulty and commitment. For both levels this week, I would like you to pick out 1 or 2 lines out of this. All right, and I'm pulling it out so I can give you an example. 1 or 2 lines of the humility prayer, because this is what we're talking about. We're talking about the consolation. If we have the desire to be consulted, we want everybody to ask us our opinion, ask us how we should be doing that. Our attachment to that consolation is going to result in what? Vanity. So level 1, I'd like you to pick out 1 sentence. 1, being loved, honored, extolled. Maybe you're afraid of being humiliated. Maybe you're seeking consolation because you're afraid somebody might find out you're not as fast or as smart as somebody else. Let's pick one out and let's just take it into our prayer closet and let's meditate on why this is difficult for me personally. Why, if I'm afraid of being wronged, if I'm afraid of things that might wrong me, either my reputation, why am I afraid of that? Where is my attachment to the consolation of constantly getting lauded and praised? Let's write that down and meditate on that. And let's pray about that one specific area that we seek consolation in. And level 1, I'd like you to, when you're meditating and you're praying, if you can, journal this. And if you'd like to just take the time in quiet prayer, I'd like you to imagine what it could be like, what it would look like if you let this go and you put it in God's hands and you prayed to God earnestly, grant me your will in seeking, in worrying about people wronging me, in worrying about seeking consolation in this area of my life. Because that's all we can really do, is focus on one area at a time. And it works. It really does. I can tell you that. Level 2, very similar. I'd like you to look at the prayer that we discussed last week, which is the humility prayer. Jesus, meek and humble of heart, from the desire either being esteemed, loved, extolled, honored, praised. Let's look at the areas in our life, and I'd like you to take 2. Why do I want you to take 2? Because as usual, I ask you to do a little bit more because you have a little bit better of a regular practice of prayer, observation, faithfulness, humility. So I think it is good to look at the main one that you think that you struggle with as far as receiving or needing consolation, and the one that you think really isn't that much of a problem. And I'd like you to line them up in your meditation. And in your journal, I'd like you to write down the similarities that you have to these. I'd like you to look at them on paper in black and white, and like a checks and balance sheet. What is this going to look like if I'm detached? How will I have more peace when I detach and put this in God's hand? That's what we're really seeking here. And that's what I'm hearing some great stories and feedback. And I thank you for your feedback. This is Sister Farrah, Sword of St. Michael Network here, doing the Dom Lorenzo Scupoli weekly formation book. In number 2, as we finally look at giving up that consolation to God, in your week this week, every day, I'd like you to begin your day with a 1-sentence prayer. Lord, help me not to seek the consolation of men. or something to that effect, to where you're comfortable praying it and reminding yourself that you are going to do what you can to detach from consolation in whatever area. Whether you are receiving consolation from your boss, consolation from your parents, consolation from your wife, whatever your attachment is, the consolation of the world that gives you great joy, that specifically speaks to you, we're wanting to direct that to the peace of God and the trust and the faith that everything He brings us to, every tear, every outpouring of sorrow, every joy, is for His greater glory. I want to thank you for joining us. And as always, please give us a thumbs up, a like, and subscribe if you can. Please share this on social media network, hashtag Swords of St. Michael. Thank you so much for those of you that support the show regularly on Patreon. There are other ways you can support us by simply sharing. Go to swordsofstmichael.org, make a direct donation. Thank you, because this ministry depends on you. As always, never forget the battle has already been won. God bless you until next week, and goodbye. Sister Farah, signing off.